Outside all day! Except if you're gonna teach them base knowledge. That's the only reason to be inside. And today we're gonna continue where we left off yesterday. Uncle Jack, please educate us some more. Make our brains more base knowledge based.
Understand how this is all linked. The reason I have a huge problem with food gurus, like the guy like Atomic Siegfried is out there telling the world that a Warburg metabolism is totally tied to food choices. That is absolutely 100% bullshit. And how do we know that? We know that because of Mo Dallas. We know that because of Meyer Lansky. We know that because of Alan Fry and Nora Volkow's work. When anybody's blue lit, because melanopsin is the dominant opsin in humans, it's now present in our fat, our skin, our blood vessels, and our brain. We know that definitively. What does that tell you? Light shifts your metabolism. And it forces it away from the TCA cycle to how we used to use it when we were simple. 650 million years ago, before the Cambrian explosion, the first two domains of life, bacteria and archaea, guess what? That's what they use. They use the Warburg metabolism.
Salmon Nutella, do you use Warburg metabolism? Just like my retina or my gonads. I know where this is going, but we want that TCA cycle. We want to make that ATB like a real human beings. If you want to run this machine good, and what do you need for that? You need to see that thing straight when you wake up and all day long.
So anytime you get shifted back to a Warburg metabolism, it tells you that complex life is not possible, which explains all the symptoms tied along COVID. When you have an energy hog in your head, how could it possibly work when you're feeding it shitty glucose to make shitty ATP? In other words, you're built as a Ferrari, but you're asked to run on shitty gas.
Yeah, bro. We don't want that shitty ATP. We want that based ATP. Thanks, nature, for providing it. And thanks for the elites for shifting our asses to Warburg metabolism 24/7. Thanks, guys.
That's the story. So the interesting thing is, when you put this together, Lynn Margulis, who used to be a cosmologist's wife, who came up with the idea of endosymbiosis, which she never realized, is the story that I told you about the intermitochondrial membrane. How did archaea and bacteria join together after the great oxygenation event? Photobioelectric power joined those two cells together to create a mitochondria in eukaryotes. That is the first cancer on the planet. Oh, so you're starting to understand that cancer isn't even what you thought. In other words,
yeah, bro, I have kinda known about that for a long time. But this is also a new perspective for me about cancer. It kinda ties somewhat well together with the terrain theory version of cancer. This might be a little bit more deeper even, or it is scientifically.
when bacteria and archaea were forced to fuse because oxygen was toxic to both of them, they decided to join forces. And what was the power they used? Was the amount of electric current that was present between both of them to do it. And they both used initially the Warburg metabolism. What eventually comes up in complex life? The TCA cycle. And they're able to use the TCA cycle. Why? Because they innovated mitochondria. That's the key. Because what happens, where's the TCA cycle? It's inside of mitochondria. Now here's the hard...
Mitochondria loves TCA cycle. And what is the mitochondria? It's the powerhouse of the cell. That basically How good is your mother country? That's the only question. When it comes to health, you need to know. How good is it? Is it running that shitty ATP? Or is it running that best to the bone ATP?
Hard stop again. Do you remember the story I told you about heme protein, cytochrome C oxidase? What did I tell my friend from Portland about Becker's work? The red blood cells filled with what? Hemoglobin, right? What's the third one? Nitric oxide synthetase that controls your stem cells, made from another heme protein. Where's the first step of heme metabolism in humans? Mitochondria. So if you get rid of the deuterium depleted water at cytochrome C oxidase, you can never make the heme you need to regenerate. Got it now? Because that's the full story.
Which affects all disease, right?
Which is why Uncle Jack has been saying what for 20 years? Blue light is the source of every chronic epidemic on this planet. And none of you know it. Why? Because none of you decided to go outside your silos. But guess what? Uncle Jack did, and who's the one that taught me that? Robert O. Becker.
Jack, you've got a quote.
Beast. Also, we don't know it because DARPA, the elite, they know very well what the blue light does. And they don't want us to know. You don't hear this shit about Joe Rogan. You don't hear this shit about with Andrew Huberman, except when Uncle Jack schooled his ass on Rick Rubin's podcast. And what happened after that? Nothing, bro. You don't hear about the important shit. You get only the health truths. Okay, Uncle Jack, let's get even more based.
The ultra-weak biophotons from Fritz Pop are all about. That's the reason why the light that a mitochondria make is a signal to everything else.
Yeah, did you know? We make light. Aura is real, bro. Who's got the strongest aura? Who makes the most amount of light? Actually, that might be a bad thing. You need to make a right amount of light. You can make too much, but your mother country makes light, UV light. That's pretty cool. And every living thing. This raw chicken made some UV light. I don't know, doesn't make it anymore.
Problem is when that light signal's gone because your power grid is wide open between NAD and oxygen, it's a problem. And anybody who has a Warburg shifted metabolism, here's the ultimate irony. Oxygen is a toxin for you.
That's right.
We've
It's a
been
bad
talking
thing.
about this one, or learning about this one from Uncle Jack. Oxygen might not be the best thing for you. If you in that Warburg shitty ADP metabolism.
And this is the reason why humans get tinnitus, Meniere's disease. It's the reason why they get cataracts. It's the reason why they get sleep apnea. Why? The neural networks of the brain are trying to protect them from blue light and non-native EMF. Why? Because the oxygen is drawing this electric current, and you're self-electrocuting not only yourself, but the rest of the circuits that are tied to this neural network. That's how much wisdom is in our organism. We're incredible. But you
Yes,
need
we
to
are.
understand the quantum level. You need to understand the wiring diagram of the mitochondria, which none of you do. None of you do.
I actually want to, sorry?
I was going to say, when you think about this, when you think about some of the recommendations you make for people, now you understand why I come out and say the things I say.
In the blog, this whole series, Decentralized Medicine, is so good. But this latest one, you talked about how treating COVID patients and cancers, we actually should be treating them as if they have an oxygen allergy.
Correct. You know the reason why? Because everybody who's got a post-COVID injury effectively is running a Warburg metabolism in certain places. So you would think, like, I'll give you an example, because I haven't pounded on them too much in podcasts, but
Pound on
Siegfried
him.
has gone around telling everybody that Warburg is a pathologic shift. It's not. You know how you can know this? I asked a simple question when I was a neurosurgery resident. If Warburg found this in 1924, is there any part of the human body that runs a Warburg metabolism naturally? And guess what I found the answer was? The human retina does at the fovea. So guess what? If it runs it at the fovea, that tells you it's not pathologic, doesn't it? Because we don't have a bunch of people running around with fovea cancer, do we? So that tells you right there that anything that comes out of Siegfried's mouth from here on in, he doesn't know the whole part of the story. You guys in this podcast know way more of it. So then you got to ask yourself, what is it unique about the fovea that makes it run the way it does? There's no melanin in the fovea. Oh,
It all comes down to melanin.
it always will, because
It
it's a
always
mammalian
will.
story. You didn't listen very well to the Huberman podcast. So guess what I'm trying to explain to you? When Uncle Jack says something, you better really listen to what I'm saying. Because it turns
learned
out that the details really matter. So the Becker book, I can't tell you how many people I have turned on to that book. And do you know what nobody's has asked me until the podcast that really shook him, that he said he listened to twice? What did I focus in on? 1/1,000,000,000th of one atmere in a red blood cell. And nobody has ever asked that question. The sad part is, Becker didn't even ask that question. He was like, I can't believe it, but that's what I found. And he even talks about all the crazy researchers who changed the electrodes to different metals. He's like, no, we have to use a specific one. And what was his greatest discovery that really nobody talks about? He took a child whose finger
This
was
is
amputated.
crazy.
See where I am now? He was able to regenerate the fingertip. All he did was
Dang.
change his electrode to silver iodide. Why? Because he realized if he used silver, it would create more electrons, so maybe that could work. He was able to recapitulate the entire finger of a mammal. Let's be clear here.
That's pretty crazy, bro. You got your finger from here. You can regenerate it. I know you can regenerate your liver and your bone. But even your finger. Damn, we are pretty good at healing. If we let the nature do its job.
A mammal in 2.5 months. So you know what that means? This program is universal in all complex life. It spans amphibians, it spans reptiles, and it's in humans. Guess what? That's actually what they really paid Becker to do. That information DARPA has buried from everybody. Why? Because if you know that you can replace a fingertip, that means that there's an answer for their COVID jab. There's an answer for their cancer spike. There's an answer for their control program. Got it? That's the real story that Becker taught us. But none of you want to put it together. You stay siloed in what you believe. You keep believing the bullshit that food matters. It doesn't matter at all. What matters?
Matters little bit. Let's be honest, Jack. You know this. But you wanna drive this message really true. Step out of your food silos, your biochemistry silos. Wake the fuck up. He must be pissed off telling people this for 20 years. And not that many people yet listen or know about this. Because, like he said, DARPA and the forces at the top, they really don't want masses to know about this. Because that would really harm their little Ponzi schemes and businesses that they run.
Is the photobioccurrence and how they operate cells. And when you begin to realize that it's all solid state physics, it's all semiconduction, it's all dopants, it's all how light is created, the fidelity of that signal is all that matters.
Is the problem that people are
Yeah, bro. We need to get those signals strong. Let's finish off with this one. This has been amazing message. Now you know how to heal. You know what causes diseases. I think this hits a little bit more.
Electric current that was used to do this was off the chain.
so? What's the answer to all this chronic disease and cancer? Is it
Turn off the
is it
internet.
anything you? I was gonna say.
Carrington event.
Turn
That's
off
what we
this
need. Go look it up.
what's-
Carrington event.
Oh, is that about the electricity?
Destroy
Yeah,
the
that's when the
technology,
CME
bro.
from the sun hits the
That's
earth.
the real
And
answer.
that takes care of all of
This
the Department of
technology
Defense's little
sucks.
tools. And that's the same effect that you get when you go camping in a place. And if you go back and listen to the guy that's the only person that I know in the United States who's been diagnosed with Havana syndrome, what's the number one place they sent them to? To Greenbrier, West Virginia. Why?
Right,
Because there's no EMF there.
right, yeah.
And it turned out when he went there, all the stuff that DARPA was targeting him went away. So if you understand how the process works, how it's wired, you understand the biophysics, you can make people better. That includes the worst cases you ever could imagine. And what am I getting ready to do on the blogs is tell you exactly where and how these diseases can be affected. Right now, we're focusing on the elephant in the room because the elephant in the room is all these young, fit people dying turbo cancers and dropping dead. We know why they're dropping dead because of the myocarditis. That one's easy. What people don't even know is the bigger pulse in the hospital data is actually at the kidney level. Why? Because the kidney membrane is a big deal too. Why? It's also electromagnetic. So that's the reason why you can go from having normal kidneys to, stage 4 kidney failure and be on dialysis if things go wrong for you. It's also the reason why fit people are dying at record rates where fat people aren't. Why? Because remember, the lipid nanoparticles are directed towards the fat, away from your organs. So the skinnier you are, the more chance you have of dying. How do you like that?
Bam, bro.
So when you ask the question, why did Damar Hamlin?
Damn, son. Get fat, bro. Just a little bit. Never around Warburg metabolism. Always TCA cycle champs. We need to be the TCA cycle champs. And what does we need to eat? We need to eat salmon Nutella. We need to be outside. We need to see sunrise with our bare feet on the ground and our sack hanging low so the sunrise sunlight hits the sack real good. That's TCA cycle maxing 101. And then just spend outside all day. TCA cycle will run so smooth. And that Warburg seat, we're gonna stay away from that. And the sun is shining right now, real good outside, so I'm out of here. See ya.